Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Carol Channing was an American actress, singer, and comedian whose exuberant personality, distinctive voice, and boundless energy made her one of Broadway's most beloved stars. Born on January 31, 1921, in Seattle, Washington, and raised in San Francisco, Channing developed a fascination with theater at a young age. After studying drama and dance at Bennington College in Vermont, she moved to New York City to pursue her dream of performing on stage, a decision that would lead her to become an enduring icon of American musical theater. Channing first rose to prominence in the late 1940s and early 1950s with her comedic timing and unmistakable charm. Her breakthrough came in 1949 when she starred as Lorelei Lee in the original Broadway production of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, introducing audiences to the now classic song, "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend." Her performance was a sensation, playful, clever, and full of vitality, and it made her a Broadway legend virtually overnight. But it was her role as Dolly Gallagher Levi in Hello, Dolly! 1964 that would forever define her career. Channing's exuberant portrayal of the meddlesome matchmaker became one of the most iconic performances in Broadway history. With her wide grin, rolling eyes, and expressive voice, she turned Dolly into a symbol of joy, perseverance, and theatrical brilliance. The show ran for nearly 3,000 performances, and Channing reprised the role many times over the decades, including in major revivals and national tours. Beyond the stage, Carol Channing also made her mark in film and television. She appeared in movies such as Thoroughly Modern Millie, 1967, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her role as the eccentric Muzzy Van Hosmeer. Her television appearances, from talk shows to variety specials, showcased her quick wit, eccentric humor, and warmth, endearing her to audiences of all ages. Channing was a lifelong performer, known for her boundless enthusiasm and a deep love for the theater. Her instantly recognizable voice, a mix of raspy sweetness and comic exaggeration, became her trademark, as did her platinum blonde hair and dazzling stage presence. Offstage, she was known for her optimism, generosity, and unwavering dedication to her craft. Over her long career, Channing received numerous honors, including a Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement, multiple Golden Globe nominations, and induction into the American Theater Hall of Fame. She continued performing well into her 90s, always bringing the same joy and sparkle that defined her earliest roles. Carol Channing passed away on January 15, 2019, just 2 weeks shy of her 98th birthday. Her legacy endures as one of the most charismatic and beloved figures in the history of American theater, a true original whose laughter, charm, and energy lit up the stage for more than 7 decades. Carol Channing's life was as colorful and theatrical offstage as it was under the spotlight. Raised by her mother Adelaide and father George Channing, she grew up in a household that valued creativity and education. Her father, a newspaper editor and Christian Science lecturer, instilled in her a love for reading and performance. As a child in San Francisco, she often entertained classmates and teachers with impressions and spontaneous skits, an early sign of the showmanship that would define her future. After graduating from Lowell High School, she attended Bennington College, where she studied drama and dance. It was during these years that she honed her comedic timing and developed her unique stage presence. Following college, she struggled at first in New York, working odd jobs and auditioning endlessly before finally earning small roles on Broadway. Her perseverance paid off when she landed her first major notice in Lend an Ear, 1948. a musical revue that allowed her to showcase her wide range of comic characters. Her zany energy, rubbery facial expressions, and wide-eyed innocence captivated audiences and critics alike. Her big break came a year later with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, where she played the gold-digging but endearing Lorelei Lee. Though Marilyn Monroe famously portrayed the role in the film adaptation, Channing's stage version remains definitive, full of wit, satire, and sharp humor. Her rendition of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend became her signature number, performed by her countless times over the years, even into her 90s. Throughout her career, Channing was known for her total dedication to her roles. She treated each performance as a new opportunity to connect with her audience, often emphasizing that theater was a living art form, a shared experience between performer and spectator. She brought that philosophy most fully to life in Hello, Dolly, which she originated in 1964. The musical became a cultural phenomenon, and her portrayal of Dolly Levi was so beloved that she returned to it in numerous revivals, including a 1995 Broadway run that introduced her to a new generation. Beyond her theatrical triumphs, Channing also made forays into film, television, and music. Her performance in Thoroughly Modern Millie, 1967, earned her both an Academy Award nomination and a Golden Globe win. She appeared on countless television shows, from The Ed Sullivan Show and The Carol Burnett Show to Sesame Street, bringing her comedic genius to mainstream audiences. Channing was also a tireless advocate for the arts. She championed arts education, founding the Carol Channing and Harry Collagen Foundation for the Arts in 2004, which aimed to restore arts programs in public schools. Her belief in the transformative power of theater was unwavering. She often said that performing arts teach empathy, imagination, and community, values she lived by. Her personal life had its own drama and romance. Channing was married 4 times, most notably to Harry Collagen, her junior high school sweetheart, whom she reconnected with more than 70 years later. Their reunion, marriage, and activism for arts education became a touching late-life love story. Even in her later years, Channing remained active, touring with her one-woman show, The First 80 Years Are the Hardest, in which she shared memories, humor, and songs from her extraordinary career. Carol Channing's impact on American entertainment cannot be overstated. She was a symbol of Broadway's golden age, a performer who radiated joy, theatricality, and authenticity. Her expressive face, gleaming smile, and singular voice made her instantly recognizable, while her humor and generosity made her unforgettable. Carol Channing's influence extended far beyond the stage. She became a living emblem of Broadway itself. Her performances embodied the exuberance, optimism, and showmanship that defined the golden era of American musical theater. With her trademark wide smile, saucer-like eyes, and that unmistakable throaty voice, she could make an audience feel as though they were part of something joyful, intimate, and timeless. Her portrayal of Dolly Gallagher Levi in Hello, Dolly became one of the most enduring performances in Broadway history. When the show first opened in 1964, it won 10 Tony Awards, including Best Actress in a Musical for Channing. The production ran for nearly 7 years, a record at the time, and cemented her status as a legend. She became so closely identified with Dolly Levi that even decades later, audiences would chant her name when she returned to the role in revivals. It was not merely nostalgia, it was recognition of how deeply she had defined that character in the public imagination. Channing's connection to her audiences was the essence of her magic. She once said, "I'm not a singer or a dancer. I'm an actress who sings and dances." That humility masked her technical skill. She knew how to command a stage, how to pause for laughter, how to stretch a moment until it shimmered. Her timing was impeccable, she could turn a simple glance into a punchline. Off stage, she was equally warm, gracious, and devoted to fans, often staying long after performances to sign programs and chat. Her later years brought renewed appreciation for her legacy. In 1995, she returned to Hello, Dolly! On Broadway at age 74, receiving standing ovations every night. Critics praised her vitality, saying she performed with the same effervescence as she had in the 1960s. In 2003, she published her autobiography, Just Lucky I Guess, a witty and touching reflection on her life and career. In 2012, a documentary titled Carol Channing, Larger Than Life was released, offering an intimate look at her personal journey, her love story with Harry Colajian, and her unwavering passion for performing. Channing's career also marked significant cultural moments. She was one of the first Broadway stars to openly celebrate diversity and inclusion, frequently working alongside African American artists during the Civil Rights era. She performed at the inauguration of President Lyndon B. Johnson, entertained troops overseas, and appeared on countless television specials that celebrated America's performing arts heritage. Despite her fame, she lived modestly and never lost her sense of gratitude. Friends and colleagues described her as eternally curious, someone who approached every performance as though it were her first. Even into her 90s, she retained her characteristic sparkle, humor, and optimism. When Carol Channing passed away on January 15, 2019, tributes poured in from the theater world and beyond. Broadway dimmed its lights in her honor, and performers spoke of her as a guiding light, a pioneer who inspired generations of actors with her commitment, authenticity, and joy. Her legacy is not only in her unforgettable roles but in the way she represented the spirit of live theater, spontaneous, heartfelt, and larger than life. She was Broadway's eternal sunshine, a performer who made audiences believe, if only for a moment, in the power of laughter, music, and human connection. Throughout her extraordinary career, Carol Channing received a remarkable array of honors that reflected her immense impact on the performing arts. She was a three-time Tony Award winner, including the Lifetime Achievement Award in 1995, which recognized not just her unforgettable performances but her tireless dedication to the craft of live theater. She also received a Golden Globe Award and an Academy Award nomination for her exuberant portrayal of Muzzy Van Hosmeer in Thoroughly Modern Millie, 1967. A performance that perfectly captured her trademark energy and eccentricity. Her influence was further recognized with her induction into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 1981 and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She was also awarded the Oscar Hammerstein Award for Lifetime Achievement in Musical Theater, and her hometown of San Francisco proclaimed Carol Channing Day in her honor. Each accolade spoke not only to her talent but to her singular presence, a performer who seemed to embody the spirit of Broadway itself. Channing's performances were defined by her commitment to joy, generosity, and sincerity. She famously insisted on performing live whenever possible and avoided the detachment of television taping, saying that nothing could replace the electricity of an audience. Her stage work inspired generations of performers, not just for her comic timing and vocal style, but for her emotional openness and fearlessness. Actresses like Bette Midler, Bernadette Peters, and Barbra Streisand, who played Dolly in the 1969 film, all credited Channing's theatrical brilliance as a defining influence in the world of musical theater. Beyond her on-stage triumphs, Channing was a trailblazer for arts education and advocacy. Together with her late husband, Harry Kulijian, she co-founded the Carol Channing and Harry Kulijian Foundation for the Arts, which worked to restore performing arts programs in American public schools. She passionately believed that exposure to the arts could transform lives, saying, "If you take art out of schools, you take away the heart of learning." Until her final years, she continued to campaign for the importance of theater in education, visiting schools, and speaking to students about the magic of performance. In her later life, Channing enjoyed renewed appreciation through documentaries and retrospectives that highlighted her trailblazing career. The 2012 documentary Carol Channing, Larger Than Life, painted an affectionate portrait of her as both an artist and a woman, endlessly curious, humorous, and devoted to bringing happiness to others. She was known for her humility despite her fame. She never stopped being grateful to audiences and often joked that applause was her favorite sound in the world. Her personal charm, coupled with her dedication to her art, made her beloved not only among theater enthusiasts but across generations. Younger audiences came to know her through appearances in animated films and television, lending her unmistakable voice to shows like The Addams Family, The Magic School Bus, and Family Guy, among others. Carol Channing's passing in 2019 marked the end of an era, but her spirit remains woven into the fabric of Broadway. The theater community remembered her not only as a performer but as a symbol of resilience, joy, and creative daring. Her laughter, her exuberance, and her absolute love for the stage continue to inspire new artists to this day. In the words of Channing herself, "Performing isn't about being seen, it's about sharing your heart. If you give that truthfully, people will love you forever." Carol Channing gave her heart to the world, and in return, the world loved her for it. Carol Channing's artistic philosophy was deeply rooted in sincerity, generosity, and connection, values that made her more than a performer. She was a storyteller, a conduit of emotion between stage and audience. She believed that the essence of great performance wasn't in perfection, but in truth. Every time she stepped onto the stage, she gave herself completely, channeling the joy, heartbreak, and humor of her characters with childlike wonder and ageless wisdom. Channing often described herself as married to the theater. She believed that performing was a sacred exchange, that the audience gave her energy, and she gave it back 100-fold. Even in interviews, she emphasized that her greatest reward was not fame or applause, but the feeling of bringing happiness to others. "When I'm on stage," she once said, "I can feel people smiling. That's better than any medicine, any prize, or any kind of wealth." Her performances embodied that spirit. She could make the simplest line sparkle, the smallest gesture feel monumental. Her physical comedy, those wide, animated eyes, the flutter of her hands, the exaggerated tilt of her head, was never random. Every movement was deliberate, a blend of craft and instinct honed through decades of live performance. She once said she learned timing by watching vaudeville acts as a child, studying how laughter traveled across a room. That meticulous attention to rhythm, combined with her spontaneous warmth, made her a master of live theater. In a sense, Channing represented the last link to the golden age of Broadway, a time when musicals were grand spectacles driven by larger-than-life personalities. But she also transcended eras, influencing the evolution of musical theater by showing that charisma, humor, and authenticity could be as powerful as glamour or vocal virtuosity. Younger performers like Kristen Chenoweth, Sutton Foster, and Megan Hilty have all cited Channing's fearless individuality as a model for embracing their quirks rather than hiding them. Her persona, part comedic, part sentimental, wholly unique, became a template for a new kind of female performer, one who was both strong and funny, glamorous yet self-aware. In this way, Channing paved the way for later Broadway heroines who could be both bold and vulnerable, such as Dolly herself, Mame, or Roxy Hart. Channing's reach also extended into popular culture. Her voice and mannerisms were lovingly parodied and imitated by comedians and impressionists, not out of mockery but out of affection. Her distinct cadence became shorthand for theatrical exuberance. She appeared as herself in cameos on television, lending a knowing wink to her public image, proving she never took her fame too seriously. She also had a profound spiritual and emotional depth beneath her humor. A lifelong adherent of Christian Science, Channing believed deeply in the power of positive thought and divine inspiration. She often credited her faith with sustaining her during difficult times, especially through the struggles of show business. Despite personal and professional challenges, from typecasting to financial setbacks, she never lost her optimism or generosity of spirit. In her final decades, Channing was often described as Broadway's living memory. She attended revivals, mentored young performers, and spoke at arts events with the same verve that defined her youth. Even into her 90s, she performed at benefits and appeared in interviews, her wit as sharp and her laugh as infectious as ever. When she passed away, many in the theater world reflected on her extraordinary legacy, not just as a performer, but as a symbol of pure theatrical joy. The Marquis Theater on Broadway dimmed its lights, and tributes poured in from performers across generations. Lin-Manuel Miranda, Bernadette Peters, Bette Midler, and others hailed her as an eternal showwoman, a reminder of why people fall in love with live theater in the first place. Today, Carol Channing's presence still resonates, in the laughter of audiences, in the sparkle of a show tune, in every actor who dares to be boldly, joyfully themselves. She once said, with her signature grin, "You're never too old to shine a little. The spotlight is just love, and love never burns out." That was Carol Channing, luminous, fearless, and timeless, a true original whose laughter still echoes through the footlights of Broadway. Carol Channing's influence on musical comedy and American cultural history is immeasurable. She was not simply a performer, she was an institution, a bridge between vaudevil's golden laughter, Broadway's glittering heyday, and modern musical theater's emotional authenticity. Her career, spanning more than 7 decades, traced the evolution of entertainment itself, from the smoky, intimate theaters of post-war New York to the bright television screens that brought Broadway magic into living rooms across the nation. In an age when many performers chased glamour or seriousness, Channing dared to celebrate joy, not as a frivolous escape but as a vital force. She transformed musical comedy into something both grand and deeply human. Her performances in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Hello, Dolly exemplified the power of personality-driven theater, shows built around a performer's unique rhythm, wit, and heart. Her comedic timing was razor-sharp, but beneath the laughter was warmth, empathy, and vulnerability, qualities that gave her humor depth and her character's soul. Channing helped to redefine the American stage heroine. In an era dominated by conventional leading ladies, she proved that beauty in theater came not from perfection, but from individuality. She was unconventional, unpredictable, and gloriously distinctive. Her characters weren't just glamorous women chasing love or money. They were self-made, clever, resourceful, and full of life. Lorelei Lee and Dolly Levi were extensions of Channing herself, determined, optimistic, and unshakably confident in the belief that life, no matter how absurd, was worth celebrating. Culturally, she represented a quintessentially American archetype, the dreamer who rises through charm, wit, and relentless enthusiasm. Her story, from a modest upbringing in San Francisco to the heights of Broadway, resonated with a nation that valued reinvention and courage. Like Lucille Ball, Judy Garland, and Carol Burnett, Channing embodied the spirit of women who made comedy a form of empowerment, long before the industry celebrated such things openly. Her impact on gender and performance was also profound. Channing blurred the lines between glamour and parody, between sincerity and self-awareness. Her performances invited audiences to laugh with her, not at her, and in doing so, she reshaped what it meant to be a leading woman in comedy. She taught that exaggeration, when rooted in truth, could be both hilarious and deeply touching. Channing also played a significant role in preserving Broadway's identity during times of cultural change. As rock and film began to dominate American entertainment in the 1960s and 1970s, she stood as a guardian of the classic musical tradition, the live orchestra, the overture, the tap of heels on the stage floor. Yet she never seemed outdated. Her performances were timeless because they were sincere. Her legacy continues to echo through countless revivals and reinterpretations of the roles she originated. Every actress who dons Dolly Levi's red gown owes something to Channing's spirit. Every performer who dares to play big, to laugh loudly, to find truth in comedy, they all follow in her footsteps. Even beyond Broadway, Channing's influence seeped into American pop culture. She was frequently referenced in animation, comedy sketches, and even drag performance. Her voice, face, and flair so distinctive they became a language of their own. Her influence on drag culture, in particular, was profound. Performers saw in her an example of theatrical exaggeration as empowerment, of gender performance as art. And yet, despite her grandeur, Carol Channing never lost her humility. She often said she was just a lucky girl who got to play dress-up for a living. Her laughter was spontaneous, her enthusiasm unfeigned. She treated fame as a byproduct of love for audiences, for music, and for the magic that happened when the curtain rose. In the grand tapestry of American performing arts, Carol Channing stands among the brightest threads, woven from humor, heart, and a near mystical sense of joy. She left behind not only unforgettable performances, but a philosophy that theater is not a spectacle to be admired from afar, but a shared celebration of life itself. As long as Broadway lights burn, as long as audiences gather to laugh and applaud, a part of Carol Channing will live on, winking from the footlights, her voice echoing across the stage, reminding everyone that joy is the truest form of brilliance. Carol Channing's story is not just that of a performer, but of a woman who embodied the very heartbeat of the American stage, a dazzling fusion of comedy, charisma, and courage that left an indelible mark on generations of audiences and artists alike. Her legacy endures not only in the history of Broadway but in the very language of performance. In the way an actor smiles at an audience, in the way a curtain call feels electric, and in the way laughter can become an act of love. Her artistry was a celebration of being different. Carol Channing never conformed to Hollywood or Broadway's conventional ideals. With her cartoonish expressiveness, her booming yet endearing voice, and her complete lack of pretense, she stood apart, and that was her triumph. She turned what others might have seen as eccentricity into her greatest strength. To her, individuality was not a quirk to be hidden but a gift to be shared. She once remarked, "If you can make people laugh, you can make them listen." And that was her secret. Beneath the laughter, Channing conveyed truth about ambition, loneliness, aging, joy, and the unbreakable human spirit. Her characters, whether the glittering Lorelei Lee or the unstoppable Dolly Levi, were more than entertainers. They were reflections of perseverance, optimism, and reinvention, qualities that resonated deeply with the American dream. Carol Channing's spiritual life also informed her art. As a devout Christian Scientist, she believed that creativity came from a higher source, that joy, in its purest form, was divine. Her faith gave her resilience through life's storms, from the hardships of early career struggles to moments of personal loneliness. She never grew bitter, never lost her sense of wonder. Even in her 90s, she spoke of the theater with the same excitement as a young actress awaiting her first opening night. Her humor was never cruel, her performances never cynical. She believed in laughter that heals, not wounds, a philosophy that made her timeless. While so many comedians relied on sarcasm or irony, Channing radiated warmth. Her laughter, open, honest, infectious, invited everyone in. It's why her audience ranged across generations, from those who saw her first steps on Broadway to children who heard her voice in cartoons decades later. In an age where celebrity often meant distance, Channing remained profoundly human. She was known to remember names, write personal notes to fans, and show genuine interest in the people she met. When she performed on stage, she didn't just entertain, she connected. She made audiences feel seen, valued, and part of the magic. Even as she aged, she refused to slow down. Age, she would say, is just rehearsal for eternity. Into her 90s, she was still performing, still advocating for arts education, still bursting into laughter that could fill a theater. When she lost her beloved husband Harry Colajan in 2011, she spoke movingly of how love and art were intertwined, that the joy of performing was, at its core, the joy of sharing love with the world. When she passed away in January 2019, the tributes that followed were not mournful, but celebratory, fittingly theatrical, full of gratitude and song. Broadway dimmed its lights, but those who knew her insisted that Carol would have preferred they be turned back on, full blaze, for a dance number instead. In every sense, Channing's life was a performance of joy, not the shallow kind, but a radiant joy that came from authenticity, hard work, and a deep faith in the beauty of being alive. Her story reminds us that show business, at its best, is an act of communion, a meeting of souls through light, music, and laughter. Today, Carol Channing stands as a symbol of a vanishing era and an eternal truth. She was the torchbearer of Broadway's heart, a glittering messenger who showed that humor could be profound, that kindness could be theatrical, and that one person's light could brighten countless lives. Her voice, her laughter, and her iconic sparkle continue to echo through the halls of American culture. To every performer who dreams of a stage, to every audience member who leaves the theater smiling, Carol Channing whispers still, in that unmistakable, honeyed rasp, "Keep your chin up, dears. The world's a stage, so give them everything you've got." Carol Channing's story, viewed in its full sweep, reads like a love letter to the American theater, a chronicle of a woman who gave her entire being to performance and, in doing so, became one of the art form's most radiant symbols. Few entertainers so completely belonged to the stage as she did. The lights, the orchestra, the laughter of an audience, these were not merely her environment, they were her oxygen. In the grand mosaic of 20th-century entertainment, Channing was a singular color, bright, unpredictable, and impossible to replicate. Her voice could fill a hall, her smile could light one, and her timing could stop it cold. Every night she performed was an act of communion. She gave herself completely, then stood back and let the audience's joy rush toward her like a wave. She once said that the secret to her longevity was simple: I never got tired of saying thank you. Even as theater evolved, through rock musicals, concept shows, and spectacle-driven revivals, Carol Channing's artistry endured because it was elemental. She reminded the world that the soul of Broadway wasn't machinery or marketing. It was presence, that electric connection between one performer and one audience in one fleeting, perfect moment. When she stepped into the spotlight, time seemed to pause. Her long reign in Hello, Dolly remains one of Broadway's defining triumphs. It wasn't merely that she played Dolly Levi. She was Dolly Levi, brimming with wit, warmth, and irrepressible optimism. She performed the role thousands of times, yet always found something new in it: a pause, a glance, a flicker of discovery. For her, theater was never repetition, it was rebirth. That was her genius. She could perform the same line for decades and make it feel freshly minted. To watch her perform was to glimpse an era, the glitter of showbiz past meeting the living pulse of the present. She carried within her the DNA of vaudeville, the spirit of early musical comedy, the emotional reach of modern acting. She was the connective thread between Ziegfeld's extravagance and Sondheim's sophistication, a performer who could stand in both worlds and make them sing in harmony. Channing's impact also transcended art. She was, in her way, a social force, one of the few women in mid-century entertainment to command a production by sheer personality and talent. She opened doors for future generations of comedic actresses, proving that leading roles could be funny, unconventional, and full of mischief. She taught that charisma is not about perfection, but about fearlessness, the courage to be entirely oneself. Her influence radiates through performers who followed: the bold theatricality of Bette Midler, the wit of Kristen Chenoweth, the heart of Sutton Foster, even the exuberant camp of drag artists who saw in Channing's joyous exaggeration a mirror of their own. She showed that performance could be an act of liberation, of expressing joy so honestly that it becomes transcendent. And yet, despite her fame, she remained grounded. Friends often described her as humble to a fault, endlessly curious, and unfailingly kind. She was known to send handwritten notes of encouragement, to treat crew members with the same respect as producers, and to delight in the simple ritual of pre-show makeup and dressing room chatter. Her life was grand, but she herself was never grandiose. In the twilight of her years, Channing became something even greater than a star. She became a guardian spirit of Broadway. When she spoke, it was as though the theater itself had found a voice. Humorous, wise, nostalgic, and brimming with gratitude. Theater, she said, is the last place where people gather just to share something human. It's our one great family reunion every night. Her passing in 2019 was felt not as an ending, but as a soft dimming of a light that had burned for nearly a century, a light that continues to glow in the memories of all who saw her perform.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.